So next on the ancient matches is Mesolithic 2, Neolithic Lithuanian meal, Donkalnis 7, the Lake Birz, Lithuania, a match 0.19%, genetically closer to the sample than 83.67% of other genome link users. The sample is from a Lithuanian male belonging to the Baltic early to middle Neolithic Narva culture, excavated at the Donkalnis archaeological site, located on an island of the Lake Birz in the Telšia district of western Lithuania. His remains were dated to be from 6000 to 5740 Cal BCE. DNA extraction was performed from his upper right molar. His mitochondrial DNA haplogroup proved to be U5A2D1, while his Y chromosomal haplogroup was identified as R1. The Western hunter-gatherers that emerged from a West Asian refugium occupied Europe from Iberia to the east of the Baltic Sea. The Neolithization in Western Central Europe started with the migration and partial admixture of the Anatolian Neolithic farmers. However, in East Europe, especially the Baltics, the Neolithization, can't say these big words, was not followed by gene flow from Anatolia. The local Mesolithic hunter-gatherers adopted farming from the Bronze Age Yamnaya steppe herders, who also created in North Europe the corded ware culture complex. In the eastern Baltic, the hunter-fisher-gatherer subsistence persisted until 4000 Cal BCE. However, they adopted pottery production. On the other hand, pottery production arrived in the other areas of Europe together with the Neolithic farmers. The Narva culture people were actually pottery-producing hunter-gatherers. It dominated in the early to middle Neolithic in the eastern Baltic, including Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Belarus. It lasted until the early Bronze Age and received its name after the Narva River of Estonia. Since the Narva culture people did not have easy access to flint, their industry was strongly dominated by bones and horns. Although East Europe in the Mesolithic and early Neolithic was dominated by the predominantly ancient North Eurasian origin Eastern hunter-gatherers, genetic analysis of the Narva culture population indicated that they had a stronger affinity to the Western hunter-gatherers. The proportion of Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry in the Donkalnis7 individual was around 30%. His mitochondrial DNA haplogroup, the U5A2D1, belongs to the supraclade U5, which was frequent among the Western hunter-gatherers, while the U5A2D1 today can be found in Scotland, Norway, and Sweden. His Y chromosomal haplogroup R1 is basal to R1b and R1a, which are found today in Eurasia, except for East and South Asia. Donkalnis, alongside the nearby Spigenus site, served as a specialized ritual and burial ground. Archaeologists suggest that burying the dead on lake islands represented a liminal practice where water acted as a symbolic boundary separating the living from the dead. What was life like for this person and the people? Based on the archaeological discoveries at the Donkalnis site and the wider Narva culture, life for this individual was deeply tied to the rich wetland and forest ecosystems of prehistoric Western Lithuania. A specialized water world, island living, the person likely spent significant time on or around the island of Lake Birz. The landscape was a mosaic of dense forests, extensive wetlands, and interconnected waterways. Water was central to survival. This individual would have relied heavily on freshwater fishing, using bone fishhooks, harpoons, and complex willow bark fishing nets to catch pike, perch, and catfish. Water travel Dugout canoes were the primary mode of transport. They allowed this person to navigate the marshy Baltic landscape and trade with neighbouring groups. When not fishing, this person hunted in the surrounding forests. They targeted large mammals like elk, deer, wild boar, and oryx, using bows, flint-tipped arrows, and bone spears. Their diet was supplemented by seasonal foraging. They gathered wild hazelnuts, water chestnuts, berries, and edible roots during the warmer months. Animals provided more than food. The individual wore hides for warmth, used sinew for thread, and shaped animal bones into highly durable tools. This person was a part of an innovative era that adopted pottery while remaining hunter-gatherers. They used pointed-bottomed Narva clay pots, tempered with crushed shell, sand, or organic matter, to cook stews and preserve fish oils over open fires. Amber and stone tools. While they used highly imported flint when available, they also mastered crafting tools from local materials like bone, antler, and shale. They also collected Baltic amber, shaping it into beads and buttons. Beliefs, belongings, and a sacred landscape. The animal connection. This individual's worldview was deeply animistic. Society placed massive spiritual value on forest animals. They wore clothes adorned with dozens of animal tooth pendants, especially from elk and deer, which acted as symbols of identity, status, or spiritual protection. A sacred island, Lake Birz was not just a resource, it was a sacred landscape. When this person died, their community took the body across the water to be, sorry, When this person died, their community took their body across the water to the island cemetery. They buried them in a ritual space designed to symbolically separate the realm of the living from the dead. So I asked, was there anything specific with this skeleton? Yes, the Donkalnis7 skeleton was buried according to distinct, highly ritualized mortuary practices shared by the sub-Neolithic Narva communities at the Donkalnis site. Archaeological excavations reveal several specific features associated with this burial. Covered in red ochre, like many of the Stone Age hunter-gatherer graves at the site, the grave pit for Donkalnis7 was heavily laid with red ochre. Ochre is a natural earth pigment made of iron oxide. Prehistoric peoples across Europe frequently used it in burials to symbolize blood, life, or rebirth, or to act as a protective agent for the deceased in the afterlife. Animal tooth pendants. While some specific graves at Donkalnis, such as the famous shaman grave, were incredibly lavish with teeth placed over the eyes and inside the ears, Grave 7 contained numerous wild animal tooth pendants. These pendants were primarily crafted from the teeth of elk and red deer. Archaeologists found them clustered tightly around the head and chest area of the skeleton. Because the teeth were found in these specific patterns, scientists concluded they were originally sewn together onto burial clothing or a shroud that has long since decayed. The individual was laid to rest individually in a shallow pit in the supine position, flat on his back. This was the standardized intentional burial orientation for the sub-Neolithic population using the island cemetery. A contrast to other graves. To put Donkalnis7 into perspective, animal tooth pendants and red ochre were the only types of enduring grave goods found with this specific skeleton. It represents a standard, respectful community burial, contrasting with nearby grave 5, which held 2 children buried with a flint arrow and 45 pendants, and the legendary shaman grave, which contained a massive wealth of complex animal offerings. Donkalnis7 matched closely in terms of core ancestral background with the other prehistoric individuals found at Lake Birz complex. However, because the burial sites on the lake islands were used over thousands of years, there are distinct timeline shifts in the maternal DNA lines and overall genetic composition. So, Spigenas 4, Donkalnis 4, Donkalnis 7, and Donkalnis 6 all came from the U empty DNA haplogroup. Donkalnis7 was a female, and so was Spiginas-4. All of them are down as hunter-gatherers. Spiginas-2, steppe pastoralist, coded way, a massive shift. And that one is different, so I don't know what that's I4A. Spiginas-1 mtDNA is H11A. But the other ones are all U5, other than the one in Spiginas-4 is U4. The takeaways of the DNA matches: Donkalnis7 was a direct genetic match to the local population profile of his era. He closely shared the same genomic blend, roughly 70% Western hunter-gatherer and 30% Eastern hunter-gatherer, as older Mesolithic finds from the area, like Donkalnis4, and contemporary Neolithic individuals like Donkalnis6. This proved that the local population did not change genetically when they transitioned from the Mesolithic into the Nova culture. The shared maternal U superhaplogroup, Donkalnis7, Donkalnis4, 6, and Spiginas-4, all matched with the broader U and U5 lineage. The specific mitochondrial DNA line is the defining genetic signature of original European hunter-gatherers, showing deep maternal roots tied to the region over millennia. So again, the tests that Genome Link do, and especially when it connects with the ancestral things, it's autosomal. So this match could be from my father's side or my mother's side within me. But if you do go back, way back down the line, the U branch and the J branch are deeply connected. So mine is J1C3. There's where U5 and U4. But the U and the J are deeply connected as genetic cousins that diverged from a shared maternal ancestor in the Middle East during the Upper Paleolithic era. Era even. While they share a deep root, they tell two completely different stories about the population of Europe. Haplogroup U represents the ancient hunter-gatherers who arrived first, while a haplogroup J represents the early farmers who arrived thousands of years later. The deep shared root. To understand the connection, we have to look back at the maternal family tree. We both branch from the macro haplogroup R. That's the root. Around 50 to 55,000 years ago, a major genetic lineage named haplogroup R emerged, likely in South Asia or the Middle East. This lineage quickly split into different branches. One branch mutated into haplogroup U, another branch mutated to become haplogroup JT, which soon split into J and T. This makes U and J genetic cousins. Their lineage had been completely separate for roughly 45,000 to 50,000 years ago. Wow. So again, I don't know how far this goes back, but my DNA matches clearly with this person. So it's either from the mother line or the father line. From the mother line, you've got to go back a long time. Whichever side of the DNA my matches are coming from, I mean, this one's over 80% match. It's amazing finding out about the people, how they lived, sometimes how they died, the lives that they had to go through. Do you know what makes you think today we've got it easy? We've got it bloody easy. Next up on my ancient DNA match journey, Mesolithic 2, Labrana Cave Hunter. Labrana Arentero Cave, Leon Province, Spain, 0.18% DNA match, and apparently genetically closer to this sample than 87.18% of other Genome Link users.